Hello everyone, this video is going to be a little weird. Some of it might be overdubbed, some might not be. It depends on how I edit it. So what I'm going to show today is how we make pizza dough here. Now obviously I'm not going to give the entire recipe, but a general overview of it. So we got our big mixing bowl here. Now as you can tell, we don't have a newer one where they would normally have like a screen around it so you can't hurt yourself. But we have one of the older ones. This is probably 30-40 years old now, but it still works relatively great. Some of the parts are still expensive on this, but this stuff is expensive. So if you're actually going to make pizza dough in a restaurant setting, generally what you're going to need, you're going to want some dry yeast, the good nice stuff. I wouldn't use wet yeast. That just seems like a pain in the ass to try and keep wet yeast to use it. We use vegetable oil in our dough mixture, salt, sugar, and we use the good high gluten flour. That is a 50-pound bag and it's bleached and enriched. If you use any kind of store-bought crap, you gotta get these from like a food supplier. If you use the store-bought bleached flour, oh my god, it's just a pain in the ass. That dough becomes shit after one day. I had a couple years ago, we ran out of flour and I had to run to the Walmart at like 2 o'clock in the morning to make dough. This was when I was living above a restaurant I was working at, and I'd get hammered or drunk and make dough at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the stuff from the store does not work out too great. Now you can see I got a lot of dough boxes here, so they'll probably be making dough in the morning, but some of the footage I'll be showing is from quite a little while ago. You're going to want some kind of scale like this one. You want to have the nice metal top on it. You don't want to use one of the small store-bought ones either. And we use between a pound and a pound and a half for our round dough balls. And then as you can see, we have a nice pail here. We have about a, what is this, a 5-gallon pail. Now to fill it up with water, we got a little mark on here. So we fill it up about like 14-15 quarts up the way here. Now the water type that you use is really important for dough. If it's winter time and you use cold or super cold water, your yeast isn't going to rise at all. You want to use warm water during the winter, but not hot water either. You don't want to overdo it. During the summer months, you use warm water or even just tap cold sometimes. The dough balls will puff up too much when you're trying to do it. Hopefully later in the video I should have some footage of using the dough balls. But in the summer we use ice cold water. We literally put a couple scoops of ice in our dough water so it keeps just fine. Now when you put stuff in the dough mixture, you're going to want to put the salt and the sugar in first, then put in the water, mix it around and let it set for a little bit, for about like 2-3 minutes or so. Then add the yeast, mix that just until it's cloudy. Now salt in dough mixture kills yeast, so you don't want to mix those straight together, otherwise you'll get a lot of dead yeast in your dough, and that's not good for rising and for proofing it later. And then you'll put in your bag of flour, and then on this dough hook, when we have it attached, actually before you put in your flour, you want to put the oil on top of the dough hook. That way it doesn't, the dough later doesn't get stuck to the hook too bad. And then put the bag of flour right in and start this right up as soon as you do. We do it for about 7-8 minutes or so mixing. Obviously if you have a different dough mixer, you got to figure it out. And I'm not going to show some of the specs on a dough mixer, but there's a lot of different settings for these. I don't think we have it anymore, but there is a big ass egg beater for this. And you think it's going to go fast in the next video? Some idiot turned the clutch all the way up to 4, which is like egg beater status. And this thing was going crazy. Just normally this can rip your arm right off, and it's very dangerous to use, so you got to be really careful. So I left this part in because I thought it'd be pretty cool to see how dough comes up from just a flour mixture and then it actually starts going here. So I have a little bit of music in the background while you watch this. So the music playing I'll put in the description, but it's Vanilla Summer. He took Kool and the Gang summer song and did Summertime Madness and did a remix of it. If you want to not watch this part, obviously skip ahead about a minute or so and you'll get to the part where I start rolling the dough. So as you can see here, the dough mixture is almost done. In a second you're going to see my hand going. I'm going to put a little bit of flour around the edge of the pot here, and then I'll stop the dough from sticking to it when we dump or take out the dough from the pot. Now we got the big dough ball here up on the table, so we want to cut it into little chunks like we got here. You're going to get quite a few dough balls out of this. And you're just going to pick up a dough ball and you're going to tightly wrap your hands around it so it kind of shoves into the bottom of it. And you're going to make sure that the top of the dough ball still stays like nice and flat on the top. There isn't any hair on it or anything like that. And you're going to take the bottom and squeeze it a little bit so you kind of close whatever hole you got. When you put it in the dough box, you can get 6 or 7 in a dough box, and you want to flatten it down a little bit. If you leave it kind of how you rolled it together, it's not going to work out so well. You want to flatten it down so the yeast in the dough has room to grow on it. But I do it about twice, and you'll do it all the times that you got here. You could probably see a little bit better from this side how I squished the bottom of it together. So what I'm showing here is how high of a stack of boxes we use, and we do half sheets and full sheets too. But I'm going to show that these boxes are pretty bad. They don't stack on top of each other too well, and you can see that there's an air hole in it. That gets dough later to dry out and not work so well. And then I have a box of dough here that looks really nice, but you can see like there's little black specks on it. That's from yeast on it. Alright, so it's been like a day and a half, 2 days since I made that batch. You can actually tell that this is from that batch. We sold quite a bit of pizza in the last day or so. But as you can see, we leave it out to warm up. What happens is the yeast needs to be warm to activate. If you just use straight cold dough, you're not going to have a good time mixing it. And you can obviously see that it poofs up a bit, and that's why we have to use the cold water when we first do it. If you used warm water, this would look like this at all times, or it could even get bigger, and we don't want it to be like that. Otherwise it would just be garbage to work with. And you can see it sticks together a little bit, but that's not a big deal. So I'm going to show you in just a second what the dough should look like while it's sitting too, and then this is what it should look like a little bit when it's warming up. It'll feel really nice and it'll be easy to work with. See, this is still that dough. Remember how you just saw the big poofed up ones out there? Well, these obviously didn't rise to that level because they're still nice and cold and the yeast isn't activated. So this is what we want it to look like after a day or so of it sitting in the cooler. And these will last several days in the cooler so we can use them, but this is exactly how we want it to look. If it looks bloated up before you even pull it out, you probably got a batch of what I like to call shit show dough. So we want them to look just like this. Now this is what happens when you leave dough out when it's really warm out, or when your box is nice and sealed. It gets all puffed up like this, and probably this dough is going to be garbage. I might end up having to throw it out. Just it feels too soft, and the bottom is usually like super hairy. You can see like some of the holes already. That's not just from me ripping the dough up from the tray, but we'll see how it works later. But this is what you want to avoid when you're making pizza dough. You see these boxes? These are really nice. They got a lid that seals shut all the way around it, and when you stack them on top, even if you have some of the shitty boxes, it's got a lip edge, so you can stack boxes right in here. The inside of it's really nice. It's sturdy and stable. So if you can get boxes like this, I would recommend it. If you have older shitty boxes, see how nice they stack on top of each other? And any kind of box can stack on these too. They're beautiful. I'd get something like this if you have to get boxes.